We begin tonight with one of San Francisco's leading political consultants, Jim Ross, who ran Mayor Newsom's campaign in 2003. Well, you did the, what aspect of Jim?
I managed the campaign.
You did manage the campaign?
Yeah, I ran the whole campaign. That
now,
was my
last
job.
time you were here, I don't think he hadn't contacted you since the election. Has he talked to you since?
We've talked since, yes.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, you know, well, we've had a few conversations.
How do you look at that the whole picture of the mayor's race in San Francisco?
Well, you know, I think for all intents,
just as a race.
Yeah, as a race, there isn't one right now. You know, it's June. A race could develop, but you know, it doesn't seem like anybody wants to run against the mayor from the left. Tony Hall has said he's looking at running from the right, but hasn't done a whole lot of work. You know, so I really think that at this point in June, you know, there's still 5 months to go, but there isn't a race. I think the Board of Supervisors are pretty happy in a lot of ways with where the current dynamic in the city is right now. The board president, Aaron Peskin, pretty much runs the town, at least when it comes to big issues. So why would he want to, or one of his, you know, colleagues on the board want to take that chance of running against the mayor?
Yeah, it's in a way. Would you agree that the mayor, as a position or in this city, has now become a ceremonial position, whereas with Willie Brown it was a very activist position. In fact, he led to the changes we have right now, where the board's top heavy with power.
Well, I think that the mayor has some real power. One, he's the guy who does and develops and creates the budget, which the board then reacts to. You know, if you look at budgets in the past, the board might shift around, you know, $50, $60 million in a $6 billion budget. So that's real power. He gets to appoint all of the commissioners, or a huge chunk of commissioners, which is real power. But really, you know, as in any model of this type, there's a real power sharing, and there's the mayor and the Board of Supervisors. And the Board of Supervisors has become very powerful in San Francisco, partially because of Willie Brown and that era where the board steadily whittled away at the power, the institutional power of the mayoralty.
There's a lot of major commissions that now the board
the police
shares, exactly.
I mean, the myth is the mayor of San Francisco runs the police department. He doesn't. The police department's run by the police commission, which is appointed mainly by the Board of Supervisors. And the police commission who picks the chief and sets policy for the police department.
And you see that in the current dynamics of the police commission, who was elected the president of that commission.
Sure, and you know, but
and
it also
the taxi commission.
You look at the direction that people are choosing to go, or the direction and who the membership is, and it's changed dramatically because it's not the mayor that's appointing them; it's a broader group.
See, my view is, and when I brought up the ceremonial mayor, that in terms of representing the city in all its glitz and flamboyancy, then the mayor has high poll ratings. If you were to get down to a poll that rates each of the issues, whether it's crime or so on, it might be a different story.
It might be, but I think that in general people are very happy or happy with the direction of the city. You know, the most recent polling I had it in the mid-60s, people happy with the direction of the city, which is very different than when Willie Brown was up for re-election, where the direction of the city was in the 40s. You know, there's been a dramatic change. Whether or not you're looking at specific things is another issue.
Did you do that?
Pardon?
Did you check on crime, muni, and all those different issues?
I didn't drill down that deep. It wasn't a poll on the mayor, it was on other things.
Right.
But when you just go direction of the city, people are pretty happy. And that's usually a pretty good gauge as to the chances of an executive getting reelected, much more so than their personal popularity. But that said, you know, part of the reason why the mayor's so popular and the reason why people don't have a problem is he hasn't taken on the big issue. He hasn't put that popularity at risk and taken on an entrenched interest in the city.
But he would say that he's taken on health care for the uninsured. But what
entrenched interest is against giving people health care?
So I see. You mean any issue that would involve opposition?
He shies away from. You know, the president of the Board of Supervisors, one of the most progressive politicians in this town, is the only person who's willing to step up and take on the transit workers union around Muni. The mayor's not willing to do it. So in order to fix the muni system, you have to take on the transit workers somewhat. And the guy who's willing to do it is the progressive president of the Board of Supervisors, not the mayor.
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you that the city of San Francisco isn't getting run out of room 200. It's getting run out of the Board of Supervisors chamber.
Right. So then I would say that he becomes much more of a ambassador for the city and
But the institution still has power. He's just not choosing to wield it.
I see. Now, it seems like you've changed a little bit on your view of that, because you had some concerns about the mayor's race and how it might be at this time, didn't you? The last time you were here?
Well, I think that if somebody had decided a year ago that, we're going to run against the mayor and had developed an agenda, a strategy, and a plan to run against the mayor, there could be a much different dynamic right now. Nobody's really chosen to do that. There hasn't been a real programmatic, planned campaign to defeat him. And
so when the progressives, and they just had a convention recently, they
you mean the hippie hootenanny?
Whatever it was. We have had some reports from that in a previous broadcast. The point is that I think from the beginning, whether it was the Bay Guardian carrying the banner alone, to the evolution of where we are now, where the Green Party's stronger and there's candidates on the board, school board, community college board, they've always wanted to get the mayor's position. Would you say at this point they've won almost everything else in terms of ideas, the battle of ideas, major positions at the Board of Supervisors and at these other school board and the community college board? Is it just symbolic that they need to win the mayor's race to complete this takeover?
Well, I don't think that there's any feel that there's this kind of us against them. I think what the mayor has done by not taking anybody on, not taking on any interests.
No, I'm not talking about it from a progressive point of view.
Oh, okay.
Not the mayor's point of view. Do you feel that they need to do that to complete this cycle of basically changing the political direction of San Francisco, at least in their minds? Or can they be satisfied if they control the Board of Supervisors and the major boards?
I think what we're seeing is that they are satisfied. The lack.
Why do you say that?
Well, the lack of an opponent. The fact that they have not been able to recruit and find somebody to really.
It's just not worth
go.
it.
They don't.
They want to expend the energy or the money.
Why expend the energy, the money, or the time when you already have the ability to drive the agenda? I mean, who drives the agenda in San Francisco? What was, what I always ask people is, besides Wi-Fi, you brought up healthcare, what are the big accomplishments? What are the big initiatives that the mayor has done? And people have a hard time telling me.
So basically, it's both sides get what they want, and thus you have equilibrium, and thus you don't have opposition. And everyone thinks the city's going in the right direction.
Everybody feels happy, everything's going well until there's a crisis.
And they've been very lucky. The
economy's been going well.
And also half of the city's high-rises have changed hands in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What's that done? Create a huge amount of transfer taxes.
Yeah.
And Willie Brown, Frank Jordan, Art Agnes all experience deficits, and that's when there's friction.
Well, that's, so if there's a critique of the mayor, he hasn't done anything or needed to do anything to take on the city's structural deficit that, some people put around $150 or $100 million. He's done nothing to really fix the structural problems with departments like Muni. Things like that would be critiques of what he's done.
But the crime in the police department continues to be a major problem.
Yeah, continues to be an issue with folks. So, those are all critiques, but that said, because he's not taking on those issues, because he's not fighting with the powers around those.
Or needs to, doesn't have to.
Or doesn't have to, there hasn't been a problem. What happens, the issue now is, does a crisis come up? Does the turnover of the high-rises stop?
It could.
Which very well could. Is there now, a major deficit, a Frank Jordan-sized deficit? When we were there working for the mayor, he had a $250 million deficit. How does the mayor take care of that now if that similar thing happened? Yeah. How would that change the dynamic of the Board of Supervisors and the mayor's relationship?
Well, I don't know if we're going to see that. More importantly,
not in the next 6 months.
And certainly in a second term as a lame duck mayor, he can take all the chances he wants because there'll be no accountability at that point.
Well, there's always some level of accountability eventually. But you're right. The question is, what does he choose to do, and does he take the next 5 months, assuming he has no real opponent, which it looks like now? What does he do for the next 5 months? You know, is this going to be the Gavin Newsom victory lap, or is he going to lay out an agenda for where he wants to take the city of San Francisco in the next 4 years? You know, and that's going to be the real question and the real issue that they have to face. Where is it that he wants to go?
Or if he hasn't gone anywhere in the last 4 years, I doubt if he'd be going anywhere in the next 4 years.
Well, you know, and I ran his first campaign, but you know, here was a guy when he was on the Board of Supervisors who pushed the rec and park bond, pushed for muni reform, pushed care not cash. He actually pushed significant policy positions forward when he was on the board. And he's, for some reason, gotten away from that over the last 4 years. And I don't know why. You know, I'm not part of the inner circle, so I don't have that conversation or those conversations with him.
Well, you'd think that would be kind of obvious, wouldn't it? I mean, if you have high poll numbers, why would you change anything?
Why would you risk?
Especially if you want a future in politics.
Right. So
what is your assessment, by the way, because we're running out of time?
Oh.
I wanted to talk about the small business. I hope we can get to that in a moment. Last point, the scandals that he was subject to, what impact do you think that would have for any kind of statewide office?
Well,
now, as you've seen everything simmer now.
I mean, I thought that even before the scandal, he had a huge amount of problems that he would have to overcome if he was going to run statewide. I think that this just adds another level of problem to that equation. I think he would have a very difficult time running for a significant statewide office.
Small business, you know, we have advocated here on the program, and I personally, that in fact I've advocated that you be the consultant to Small Business Network, the community. They're completely unrepresented, 110,000 people, and they're getting ravaged by City Hall for that reason. Tell me, they've hired you. What do you see in the future? You only got a couple of minutes.
Well,
1 minute.
We started a series of meetings, and you know, the small businesses community is coming together to create a real agenda around 3 main areas. One is tax fairness. You know, small businesses have no problem paying their fair share. They just want to make sure that it's done fairly and it's done in a way that everybody pays their fair share.
Number 2?
2 is realistic regulation. I mean, small businesses have been hit with some of the most burdensome regulation in San Francisco.
I'm going to stop you with but what are you going to do to stop the free-for-all on small business? Well,
you have to one, you have to organize small business. You have to bring them together. You know, yes, there's more than 100,000 small businesses in San Francisco. Half of the people who live and work in San Francisco work for a small business. And you have to organize that community. Is that
what you're doing?
And that's what we're doing right now.
You think you're going to be successful?
Yes, I think we're going to have a good.
In other words, you're going to have a place at City Hall with the unions and all the other groups, the dog owners and so on.
Yeah, small business is going to put itself on the table. And the only way in San Francisco you get at the seat at the table is you sit down at it.
All right. I wish you luck with that, Jim Ross. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.